In this episode of how to make a Flappy Bird clone, we'll look at how to make the UI. So first step is to open this GitHub. I have a link for this in the description. Then we'll click on code and do download zip. Then we'll unpack this and we get the unpacked version. Now we can go to sprites and drag in the game over and the message, which is the start screen. That's all we need from in here. Now go into Unity and select these two. Then go to default and change it into sprite so we can actually use them. Now we'll create the UI. So right click in the hierarchy, go to UI and choose image. This will create a canvas. Double click on that. This is the full canvas. So whatever is inside of this will be shown on the screen, such as this image. So if we look in the game scene, we now have this image right here. Let's open up the image over here. Now drag the message over here. As you can see, it's deformed a bit. So we'll just drag this up and put it in the middle. Now upscale it, like so, but it looks a bit blurry right now, so go to message, change the filter mode from bilinear to point, click apply. Now it's not blurry anymore. We can now rename this to start screen, and we'll now down here in the assets create a new mono behavior script called UI manager. Open it up. In here we'll delete the start and update function for now, and we'll add a public bool called game started. Then we'll also have a public game object called start screen, and we'll have another public game object called end screen. This will be the game over screen. Then in the start function we'll do start screen dot set active to true, and we'll have the end screen to be false. So now the start screen will be there in the beginning. Then in the update function, we'll do if input dot get key down key code dot space. Then game started will be equal to true, and start screen dot set active will be false. And actually, instead of doing input dot get key down key code dot space, we'll do input dot get mouse button down. And we'll do mouse button 0, which is the left mouse button. Then we also need to do that in the bird script, so copy this, because right now we are using the space key, but let's use the mouse key instead, because that is what our UI says. Tap tap. And now we need to make sure that gameplay is not happening when the game hasn't begun. So let's go to the pipe spawner script. We'll do public UI manager, and then in the spawn pipe function, we'll check if UI manager.game started is false, so we'll add an exclamation mark in front of it, and if so, then we'll return, so none of this will happen if the game has not started. Also, in the UI manager script, we'll add a public game object called bird. And here we'll just set the bird to be active when we click the mouse and the game starts. And then we can also go to the bird. In here, we'll also go up to the top and add a public UI manager called UI manager, so a reference to it. And then in the on collision enter, we'll do UI manager dot end screen dot set active to be true. And now we need to wait to load this new scene until we press any button. So we'll simply do that by deleting this and copying the load scene function into the UI manager. We'll add it right here. And we'll do if endscreen.active self and input.get mouse button down 0. Then we'll load the scene. Now go back into Unity. In here we'll click on our canvas and drag the UI manager script onto here. Now we have a few things to assign. We have the start screen and we have the end screen, which we haven't made yet. We'll make that in just a second. And we also have the bird, which we can assign. But let's just add the end screen. So copy the start screen and now open the image and drag game over here. Right now it's a bit stretched, so let's fix that. Set this to a reasonable value, something like 25, seems right. And we can call it end screen. Now go back to the canvas and drag the end screen over here. Now go to the bird. Here we have the UI manager which we need to assign. So drag the canvas which has the UI manager onto here. And also the pipe spawner, which also have a reference to the UI manager, drag that over there. And also go to the bird and disable it, so it's not enabled in the beginning. Now press play. We now have this screen, and when we press, the game begins and the pipes begins to spawn. Now when we die, we get the game over screen, and when we press, the game resets and we can now play again. And that's all for this tutorial. In the next episode we'll look at how to add the score UI, so that will pop up on the screen now if the video is out yet. If not, it's out tomorrow. Have a good day.